Alright, so continuing on with our notes over multiplying and dividing rational expressions. So we finished up, remember last time, pulling out a -1 and how we can do that to make our signs become the same and to be able to cancel out top and bottom. This is going to work also with multiplying and dividing fractions. So for example, if I'm multiplying the numbers 2 over 9 and 15 over 4, we kind of talked about this before, where I said I'm someone who likes to multiply across and then cancel late. But you can also cancel early, as in if I look at these two parts and then these two parts. All right, well, what's in common in my pink parts? In my pink parts, I think we can all see that 3 goes into both of those. So I can say 3 goes into 9 3 times and 3 goes into 15 5 times. And then in my red parts, 2 goes into 2 once and 2 goes into 4 twice. Now, when I multiply across, I just get 1 times 5 is 5, and 3 times 2 is 6. So therefore my answer is 5 over 6. Now, let's look at this with regards to rational expressions. Let's look at this with regards to dividing. All right, 3 over 5 divided by 6 over 35. Remember, we talked about this as dividing by 2 is the same thing as multiplying by 1/2. So what I'm doing here is I'm keeping my first the same. I'm changing my sign from division to multiplication, and I'm multiplying by the reciprocal, so 35 over 6. So now 5 goes into 35 7 times. 3 goes into 6 2 times, giving me just an answer of 7 over 2. All right. So now, scrolling down. Again, I got this whole chart up here. If you can't understand where I'm kind of coming from, then go ahead and read through this and maybe it will help you out. But I think as I go through, it's going to help you. So, simplify each expression. 6c over 5d and 15cd squared over 8a. This would be one of those examples where I am someone who likes to multiply across and then cancel late. But it honestly doesn't matter, so let's kind of look at it both ways. I've got 5 down here and 15 up there. I think we can all see that 5 goes into 15 3 times. And then looking at my other caddy corner, I've got 6 and 8. Well, 2 goes into both of those, so that gives me 3 and 4. And remember, with multiplication, if I'm multiplying fractions, anything down below, so my pink portion, can cancel with anything up above. It doesn't have to be caddy corner. So, looking at variables here, I've got 1d down here and 2d's up top, which is just going to cancel that squared out, because if I have 1 down below and a d squared up top, that just leaves me a d up top. And that's my only variables I can cancel, because I cannot cancel these c's because they're both on the top. So I have 3 times 3 is 9. C times c is c squared and 1d left. And then down below I have 1 times 4 is 4 and an a remaining. Now let's look at this exact same problem real quick and not cancel first. All right, so let me show you what that looks like. So like I said, we know with multiplying fractions, I can just multiply straight across. So 6 times 15 is 90. I have a c and a c is c squared and d squared over 5 times 8 is 40 and a and d. So now let's cancel. This looks very much like what we had in the beginning of chapter 5. So 90 and 40. Well, 10 goes into both of those, just leaving me 9 over 4. I have a c squared up top and no c's down below. I have an a down below and no a's up top. And I have 2 d's up top and 1 down below. So where do I have more up top? How many more? Just 1. So either way, the exact same solution. Now let's scroll down to B. So on B, I have a division symbol. All right, so that's the first thing we're going to discuss. Anytime with division symbol, we need to flip the second fraction and change my sign. So I'm going to, KFC is one way to look at it. Keep the first, so that's my K. Flip the second, so 7a squared b squared now comes up top, 24m goes down below, and the C part is change my sign to multiplication. All right, so anytime you have a division, we need to change that to multiplication to be able to simplify it. And again, you can go about this either way you want. I am going to cancel first. Oh, let's say this. I'm going to cancel my numbers first, but multiply my variables straight across. So I'm only going to be looking at variables right now when I cancel it. And so 16 and 24, well, 8 goes into both of those. 7 and 21, 7 goes into both of those. So I've canceled my numbers. I've got 2 times 1 up top is 2. A squared, b squared, mt squared. 3 times 3 is 9, and I've got a to the 4th, b to the 3rd, and m. So what can I cancel? Well, 2 and 9, I can't cancel anything there. I've got 2 a's up top, 4 down below. Where do I have more? And how many more? I have 2 more a's down below. 2 b's up top, 3 down below, means I have 1 more b down below. I have an m both up top and an m down below, which just cancels, and a t squared up top with no t squares down below. So there is my final answer. So again, I chose to cancel my numbers first and multiply my variables across. I think that's going to be very easy for a lot of you guys. It's going to help you get smaller numbers instead of going 16 times 7, 21 times 24 and try to simplify. We can simplify those numbers down, but then I have my variables right above each other so I can cancel them. Sometimes, and when I say sometimes, most of the time, we're going to have to factor the numerators and denominators first before we can simplify and find the product of the quotient of these. So here, I have a plus and minuses. Kind of highlight these. Whenever you see plus and minuses in numerators and denominators, like I said before, factoring is going to be needed. So let's go through my colors here. Let's go red up top here. Let's go green down below. Let's go pink up here. And how about purple down below? So, first thing I notice, we've got a multiplication. So I don't need to flip anything. So I can go straight into factoring. And looking at my top left, 8x minus 20. So I got a 2-term. The first thing I always look for is there a greatest common factor? And there is here. 4 goes into both of those, leaving me 4 parentheses 2x minus 5. Down below, I've got a 3-term. Again, I look for a greatest common factor first, which there isn't one. So 3 terms means I'm going to have 2 parentheses, and I'm going to do my guess and check. So x, positive 7, and negative 5. Again, outside, x and negative 5 it gives me a negative 5x. Inside, 7 and x gives me 7x. When I add those together, 7x, negative 5x. That matches up with my 2x, so I'm good. Continuing on. In my pink section, again, I got a 3-term, so I know it's a guess and check because there's nothing in common. My signs are the same. And I check negative 2 and x is negative 2x, negative 5 and x is negative 5x, which gives me a negative 7x. And then last but not least, my purple. Purple is 4x squared minus 16. So the first thing you're going to be tempted to do is see, okay, this is a difference of squares, which it is. I agree with that. But before we get there, I have a 4 in common, so I need to pull that out, all right? Which gives me x squared minus 4. Now, again, I have a difference of squares. X squared and negative 4 are both perfect squares, so I can factor that down. So now everything is factored. Remember, I can factor or cancel, anything up above with anything down below. So up top, I've got all this. And then down below, I've got all of this. So, if I look to cancel here, I've got an x minus 2 here and an x minus 2 there. I've got an x minus 5 here and an x minus 5 here. Then the only thing I haven't canceled yet that I still have is I have a 4 out front on the top left and a 4 out front in the bottom right. So those cancel. All right, so now I go through and I say, what do I have left that I need to include in my final answer? Well, I have a 2x minus 5 up top. Everything in my top right canceled. I have an x plus 7 in my bottom left and an x plus 2 in my bottom right. So my final answer here is 2x minus 5 over x plus 7, x plus 2, and there's my final answer. All right, so scrolling on down to B, again, we're talking about some KFC here. So I'm going to keep my first part the same. I'm going to flip my second fraction. And then I'm going to C for change my sign from division to multiplication. So again, I see plus and minus signs in my numerators and denominators. So the first thing I'm going to do is factor. Up top, I'll get x minus 4, x minus 5. Down here, x plus 7, x plus 3. X minus 4, x plus 3, 6, x plus 7. All right, so I went through factoring pretty quickly. If you are struggling with factoring, again, I don't know what to tell you. It's going to be a struggle. Look at old worksheets that we have on Google Classroom to get help on that, but I've spent all the time I can really on. I need to move on to the next part. So factoring, like I said, it's going to be huge. Make sure you're ready for that. So go through what I have left. What can I cancel here? Well, I've got an x plus 7 and an x plus 7. I've got an x minus 4 and an x minus 4. And I believe that is it. Yes, I have an x plus 3 and an x plus 3, but they're both on my denominator, so I cannot cancel those out. And I'm left with 6 x minus 5 over x plus 3 quantity squared. All right, and there is my final answer. All right, notice at my final answer, I cannot cancel anything else. Always double check before you box your answers that you don't have anything in common there. All right, and last but not least, we're going to be talking about simplifying complex fractions. And so I give you kind of some examples up here of what a complex fraction is. So like c over 6 over 5d minus over 1. Or 8 over x minus 2 over 1, and so forth. And all we're going to be doing with these is rewriting these as a division problem and then into a multiplication problem. So on example 6, the first thing I'm going to do is write this as a division problem, where this is going to be the part I'm going to keep the same, so a plus b over 4. This is going to be the part I'm going to flip, so my 4 comes up top. A squared plus b squared goes on the bottom. And then I'm going to change it to a multiplication problem. All right, so that's me doing it without the middle step. Now, let's see if I add the middle step in, if you guys see where I'm going from here. So again, I have a plus b over 4. This fraction line, again, is just division problem. And I'm dividing it by a squared plus b squared over 4. So, again, keep the a plus b over 4 the same, so these stayed the same. I'm going to flip my second fraction, so this a squared plus b squared over 4 changed to 4 over a squared plus b squared. And last, change my sign. It was a division, and now it's multiplication. So let's go ahead and cancel what we can. I've got a 4 down below here and a 4 up top there, so those cancel. And then several kids would say, oh, you got an a plus b and an a squared plus b squared. those can cancel out. I could cancel out my a squared and my b squared. Well, the reason why I can't is that there's a plus sign in between here, all right? And I cannot factor down a squared plus b squared because we know with difference of squares, there has to be a minus sign. So I can't break that down to a plus b, a minus b, and cancel. So my final answer here is a plus b over a squared plus b squared. Going on to my next part, my final example down below here. So I got a lot going on. Again, I'll add my middle step here. So keep x minus 2 squared over 2 parentheses x squared minus 5x plus 4. Fraction line is divide. And then x squared minus 4 over 4x minus 10. So I'm going to keep my first the same, and I'm going to factor this as I go about it. So x minus 2 squared, well, I can write that as x minus 2, x minus 2. At the bottom, I can factor. I'm going to flip my second, so I'm going to factor that out. 2's in common in both. And then put the x squared minus 4 down below, which is going to give me x plus 2, x minus 2, because those are difference of squares. And I'm going to change my sign from division to multiplication. Well, let's cancel what I can. I got a 2 and a 2. I got an x minus 2 and an x minus 2. And that is it. So up top, I got an x minus 2 and a 2x minus 5. And then I've got an x minus 4, x minus 1, and x plus 2. Alright, so this is my final answer. Again, when I look at my final answer before I box it, I cannot cancel anything. No, I cannot cancel these, okay? Minus and plus signs are different. I just can't force a change to be able to cancel them. And you might think, okay, well, why don't you pull out a -1 there? Well, the reason why I can't pull out a -1 is because if I pull a -1 out of this bottom one down here, so this x plus 2, if I pull out a -1, that changes my x to negative, my 2 to negative, and they still wouldn't cancel because this has a positive x and a -2, and I have a negative x and a -2 down there, so that does nothing for me. Ignore this homework. You're not going to be doing that, all right? Again, read through the things to do on Google Classroom. You have a worksheet due in next class over multiplying and dividing rational expressions. We will have a quiz over multiplying and dividing rational expressions next class, and then we'll go from there. If you have any questions, per the usual, please email me. I can make another video for you. I can do whatever you need to help you get through any of this work. Thanks, and have a great day.